A billionaire mom sees a janitor singing softly to her blind daughter and changes her life forever. In the glossy halls of a prestigious early childhood center in Atlanta, a quiet janitor named Lauren works unseen. No one notices her until one evening. Her gentle singing calms a frightened, blind little girl. That moment sets off a chain of events that shakes the very heart of the center's powerful owner, a wealthy CEO and mother. This story is about resilience, compassion, and how kindness can break through even the toughest walls. The bus rattled along the streets of Atlanta in the early morning gray. Inside, Lauren clutched her worn thermos, the faint scent of cold coffee barely stirring her senses. The stale air of the bus mixed with the crisp chill outside, seeping through the thin windows. At 33, Lauren was already tired before the day began, her body aching from years of work no one saw. Her badge, faded and frayed at the edges, hung limp on her chest. Just a name tag, nothing more. She stared out at the passing buildings, the glass towers gleaming in the first light, a stark contrast to the neighborhoods she knew. This bus ride was a small journey between two worlds, the one she lived in and the one she cleaned every day. The empty lunchbox beside her was a silent reminder of what she carried inside: responsibility for her young niece, a girl she loved fiercely and raised alone. That thought warmed her, a quiet flame in the dull morning. The tall glass doors of the early childhood center slid open with a soft whoosh as Lauren stepped inside. The polished marble floor echoed under the heels of sharp shoes, hurried footsteps passing by without a glance. The security guards, the receptionists in their crisp blouses, even the young teachers with their designer bags. None paid her any mind. She was invisible. Just the janitor. The woman with the mop and the bucket. "Watch out!" a mother snapped at her son, watching him drop a crumpled paper on the floor. "Don't touch it. Let them clean up." Lauren caught the boy's eyes for a fleeting second. A mixture of guilt and confusion there. The mother's voice was firm, sharp, leaving no room for kindness. She knelt down quietly, her mop in hand, and bent to sweep the paper into her dustpan. The boy watched, then moved away. She heard the faint murmur of voices in the hallway, the distant laughter of children, and the smell of fresh paint mixed with lemon cleaner. All the luxuries of the center, the bright classrooms, the soft rugs, the shiny toys, felt like a different world, one she belonged to only as a shadow. The name on the plaque in the lobby was Joanna Larson Early Development Center, after the CEO who owned the vast pharmaceutical empire outside the city. Lauren had seen Joanna's photo on the walls, a poised, flawless woman with an unreadable smile, a woman who lived in a life that seemed galaxies away from the one Lauren carried on her shoulders. During breaks, Lauren found a quiet refuge in the supply closet. There, she pulled out a battered book on early childhood education, its pages dog-eared and faded. She read in stolen moments, absorbing what she could about teaching and learning, things she once dreamed of mastering before life had other plans. From behind the door's crack, she watched the children play, especially one little girl. Quiet, withdrawn, always close to the walls, her fingers brushing over braille labels on toys no one else noticed. Sarah was blind, and yet the world inside that building seemed to overlook her, even more than it did Lauren. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, and most of the staff had left, Lauren heard soft sobbing from the playroom. The other children were gone, the silence heavy. She stepped inside cautiously and saw Sarah, alone and frightened, her small hands trembling as she clutched a doll. "Hey, honey," Lauren said softly, kneeling beside her. The child flinched at the voice, then relaxed a little. Lauren began to hum, then sing a slow, old gospel song, a melody her mother once sang when Lauren was a girl. The sound filled the empty room, wrapping around Sarah like a warm blanket. The girl's sobs quieted. She leaned her head against Lauren's coat. It was a fragile moment, simple yet profound. Unbeknownst to them, a small security camera caught the scene. The flickering grain of the footage showed Lauren's gentle voice, calming the blind child, in a way no one expected. The next day, the video made its way into the hands of Joanna Larson. The CEO watched the grainy footage on her office screen, eyes narrowing. She didn't know the woman singing to her daughter, only that a janitor had crossed some invisible line. The rules were clear. No unauthorized contact with the children. But something about the scene unsettled Joanna. A twinge of something she couldn't quite place. "Who is she?" Joanna asked later that morning, standing in the center's sleek lobby, her voice low and controlled. Lauren, mopping near the entrance, looked up in surprise. "That's me," Lauren said quietly, swallowing the lump in her throat. Joanna's gaze was sharp but curious. "You were singing to my daughter?" Lauren nodded, feeling a mix of fear and strange pride. "She was scared. I just wanted to help." "Help?" Joanna echoed, folding her arms. "It's not your job." The words hit harder than Lauren expected, but she held her ground. "Sometimes the job isn't what's on paper." The next day, Lauren was called to the supervisor's office. The air was heavy with silence as the supervisor slid a written warning across the desk. "You know this could cost you your job," the woman said sharply. Lauren's fist clenched beneath the table, a rush of anger bubbling inside. "It was a kind act," she said, voice steady despite the sting of humiliation. The power dynamics were clear. The janitor reprimanded for care, the CEO watching from above. But then Joanna surprised everyone. She requested a meeting with Lauren in the lobby, standing with arms crossed, a complex expression shadowing her face. "Maybe you can spend some time with Sarah," Joanna proposed. "Just a few hours. We'll pay you double." Lauren hesitated. It wasn't about the money. But the chance to help Sarah was a seed she couldn't ignore. "Okay," she said finally, her voice firm. In the quiet classroom filled with Braille books and soft cushions, Lauren sat with Sarah, her fingers guiding the girl's hands over the raised dots. They read stories, sang songs, and for the first time, Sarah laughed out loud, her voice bright like sunlight breaking through clouds. Unseen in the hallway, Joanna watched through the glass. She couldn't understand it. How this woman, who swept floors and emptied trash, could connect with her daughter in a way she never had. Lauren's heart swelled. Something inside her shifted. Maybe this was more than just a job. The day ended in silence, but Joanna's thoughts raced. This janitor had revealed a truth she hadn't faced. A truth about neglect, about what really matters. The glitter of wealth and success suddenly felt hollow, and the world Lauren had lived in, the invisible, unseen world, was about to change forever. The video of Lauren singing to Sarah spread quietly at first, like a soft ripple across still water, but soon its echo reached far beyond the polished halls of the center. Inside the gleaming offices of Joanna Larson's pharmaceutical empire, the public relations team saw an opportunity. A story about kindness in the smallest, most unexpected place could soften the image of a company often criticized for being cold and calculating. "I want to feature Lauren," said one eager PR manager. "She's the perfect example of inclusivity, the face of change." Lauren heard about it through the whispered conversations among the staff. The thought of being paraded in glossy magazines and viral videos made her uneasy. She wasn't a hero. She was a janitor, plain and simple. At lunch break, she sat on a bench in the parking lot, the rough concrete pressing into her palms, watching her cold coffee steam slightly in the morning air. A young teacher approached quietly, lowering her voice. "She didn't ask for any spotlight," she said, nodding toward the center. "She just acted." Lauren managed a small smile but said nothing. She had learned to carry the weight of invisibility without complaint. Then came the day Joanna summoned her again. This time her tone was colder, more distant. "You're not a teacher," Joanna said sharply, arms crossed in the bright conference room. "You're a janitor. No degree, no credentials. What gives you the right to teach my daughter?" Lauren's jaw tightened. The words stung deeper than any reprimand. "I listened to her," Lauren replied steadily. "That's all." Joanna's eyes flickered with frustration, as if that simple answer disturbed the neat order of her world. Later that night, Lauren sat on her small couch at home, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a college pamphlet she never sent for. Years ago, before her sister's sudden death, she had dreamed of being a teacher, but life had other plans. Raising her niece, working long hours, surviving. Her niece's laughter echoed from the next room, pulling Lauren back from the past. She wiped a tear, squared her shoulders, and promised herself she wouldn't give up. Back at the center, Sarah began to resist the carefully arranged routines. She refused to eat with the new nanny, pushing away food as her eyes searched the room. "I want Lauren," she whispered one morning, her voice trembling but firm. Joanna heard about the refusal and felt a tightening in her chest. Control was slipping, and with it, her carefully built image of order and perfection. The next day, Lauren received a letter. Her temporary role ended. The center no longer required her presence near the children. The news hit like a blow, but whispers among the staff told another story. The young teacher who had supported Lauren now passed notes, quietly rallying others. "She acted when no one else would," the teacher said softly. "It wasn't just about the job." Lauren realized she was not alone. Then, something unexpected happened. The video of Lauren's song to Sarah found its way onto social media. Views climbed into the thousands, then millions. Comments flooded in, calling to find the woman whose voice had soothed a frightened child. Joanna sat in her office, watching the numbers climb, feeling the walls of her carefully maintained world shake. The fear of losing control gnawed at her. Finally, she reached out, a message to Lauren. "Let's talk." Lauren walked into the sleek lobby once more, heart pounding. Joanna met her with an offer. "We want you officially on staff," Joanna said. "Salary, benefits, a real position." Lauren studied the CEO carefully. "You call it power," she said slowly. "I call it fear." The tension between them was palpable, a quiet battle of wills. Days later, Joanna sat alone in her grand home, the distant laughter of her daughter, a fragile thread tying her to a memory. She thought of her own mother, distant, never singing, never holding. A crack in her armor appeared, fragile but real. When Lauren returned to the center, she came with a proposal. "Not for me," she said firmly, "but for the children who don't have a place here. Create a scholarship. Open the doors." Joanna hesitated, the idea unsettling but persistent in her mind. The next morning, Lauren found a new keycard slipped under her door. It bore a simple word: mentor. No fanfare, no speeches, just a quiet recognition. And with that, the first step toward change was taken. The announcement came quietly at first, almost as if it were afraid to disturb the polished calm of the center's grand lobby. Joanna Larson, standing before a small crowd of staff, parents, and a few local reporters, spoke with a steadiness that surprised even herself. "Today, we launched the Voices of Lauren scholarship program," she said, her gaze briefly meeting Lauren's. It's time we open our doors to those who might otherwise never have a chance here." The words felt heavy, meaningful, a bridge between two worlds that had long existed side by side, but never truly touched. Lauren stood near the back, the soft murmur of applause washing over her like a gentle tide. She wasn't on stage to seek attention. Her hands were folded in front of her, the smooth surface of a new mentor badge gleaming faintly in the light. For the first time, she felt the weight of belonging, not as a visitor or an outsider, but as someone who mattered. In the weeks that followed, the center buzzed with a new energy. Invitations arrived from schools and educational forums, asking Lauren to share her experience and insights. She found herself at a roundtable discussion on inclusive education, seated beside experts and advocates she'd only read about. The room hummed with ideas, but Lauren's quiet voice carried a unique truth, born not of theory, but lived reality. "I never planned to be in the spotlight," she told the group one afternoon. "But sometimes, it's not about what you want, it's about what's needed." The nods around her were slow, but sincere. She felt a strange humility, balanced by a growing sense of purpose. Back home, a different challenge awaited. Her niece, a bright and curious girl now starting to understand the changes around them, asked one evening as they sat together, "Why don't you want to take all those things they offer you? The money, the titles?" Lauren paused, tracing a finger along the edge of the worn armchair. "Because not everything they give is meant to be kept," she replied. "Sometimes it's about how you give it forward that counts." The niece's eyes searched hers, deep and steady, and for a moment, no words were needed. At the center, change came slowly but surely. Joanna's sharp suit softened into more casual attire, her usual crispness giving way to moments of genuine warmth. At Sarah's birthday party, a small gathering in the center's bright playroom, Joanna surprised everyone by joining Lauren in a simple song. Her voice wavered, uneven and untrained, but sincere. Sarah's laughter filled the room, a pure sound that seemed to loosen years of tension. Watching from the side, Lauren caught Joanna's eye. The CEO gave a small, almost shy smile. No words passed between them, but in that glance was a quiet understanding, a recognition of journeys taken and bridges built. Outside the walls of the center, ripples spread. Other institutions in Atlanta began adopting similar inclusive programs. Policies shifted, attitudes softened. A guard who once dismissed Lauren with a sneer found himself reassigned, replaced by someone who greeted her with respect. It was a subtle revolution, marked not by grand gestures, but by everyday kindness. In her own neighborhood, Lauren quietly opened a small children's library, tucked between two worn storefronts. She named it Voices Within, a sanctuary of stories and dreams for kids who needed a place to belong. The scent of old paper and polished wood filled the air, mingling with the laughter and whispers of young visitors discovering new worlds. One afternoon, Joanna came to visit. They sat together on a bench by a small pond nearby, the sunlight dappling through leaves onto the water's surface. Joanna's voice was softer now, stripped of its usual armor. "I never thought you'd change me," she said, eyes tracing ripples in the water. Lauren smiled, a quiet strength shining in her gaze. "I never planned to. I just did what felt right." The two women sat in silence, the space between them filled with something unspoken, but deeply understood. Returning to the center one morning, Lauren no longer carried a mop or bucket. Instead, she held a stack of storybooks, her footsteps light on the polished floors. Children gathered around as she began to read aloud, weaving tales that danced in the air like sunlight through stained glass. Her voice was steady, warm, a beacon in a place that had once seemed cold and distant. Sarah, sitting close by, reached out and took Lauren's hand. Wait, when you're here, the little girl said softly, I see the light. Tears welled in Lauren's eyes, but she blinked them away. No words were needed. In that simple truth lay everything. A lifetime of silence broken, a new chapter begun. Later, in the quiet of her office, Lauren placed her old janitor's badge into a small wooden box. On the desk beside it lay her new mentor card, shining quietly in the soft glow of the lamp. She traced the letters, Ms. Lauren, and smiled. The past was a shadow now, but the future stretched wide open, waiting. And this time, she was ready.